Get tips to accelerate your career with top companies and meet leading business disruptors who will share pivotal moments in being a successful leader. This is the Forward Motion Business Show with Professor Ken and Professor Paul A. Marino. Hit new heights. Start with Forward Motion.
Hey, welcome to the Forward Motion Business Show. I'm Professor Ken.
And I'm Professor Paul Marino.
And we have a great podcast for you today. And just so you know, we're here at the FIU Chapman Graduate School of Business, which is our host studio. So we have an expert who is actually going to help us with career development. But for some of us that may have a little more experience and who have their MBAs, a little more up in age and maybe also in knowledge. So Paul, why don't you introduce Juan for us here?
Well, I have known Juan for probably more years than I would like to remember, just showing age-wise. He has won every accolade in the HR industry that there probably is. And his depth of experience and knowledge is so vast. And I asked him to join us on the show because we've been talking about internships. We've been talking about resumes. We've been talking about undergraduates coming out and entering the labor force. But I wanted to bring him in specifically to talk about the MBA student, because the MBA student, they're now looking for an entry-level job. They're looking for something that might be very, very specific. So Juan, how does someone who has some work experience under their belt, they went back to school, they got their MBA, maybe it's in finance, maybe it's in advertising, whatever, how does that person approach their next step in their career path versus an undergraduate?
Well, Paul, when I do coaching, one of the things that I tell people is to do research in the company, okay? Presumably, now you got your MBA, you're fixed in a particular industry, a particular discipline, and you want to go work for a company that's got a reputation as a good employer. You can find that out by looking at Glassdoor, which is a particular website that discusses what people who've worked in companies say about the company, the pros and the cons. I also tell people, check with the community, with the professional community. If you're an accountant, check with other accountants. Do you want to go work with the feds? Do you want to work in a big accounting firm? Do you want to be the chief controller in another company? Check people who are already doing it to see how they react to your questions. That will give you a very important scenario. But it's important that you go to work with a company that is a good employer, because you want to get the better habits. You don't want to pick up bad habits. You want to pick up good habits as you go forward in your primary career. Okay?
That's funny you said that. You didn't say a good company. You said a good employer.
That's right, because a company might produce a good product or service, but may not necessarily be a good employer, and vice versa, okay? So, what are the four major areas? Well, you have corporate, you have privately owned, you have not-for-profits, and then you have the federal entities or the governmental entities, federal, state, and the cities, okay? So you have to do your research, which one of these, which areas or which companies in those different divisions have the reputation as being a place where you can grow your career. They treat you with respect. You don't want to be working a whole bunch of hours and go home stressed out. And it just deteriorates not only your feeling about your profession, but your family life. So it's very important that you choose a company that really, does it right. Okay?
Yeah, and I guess at our level, though, you said not to be stressed out. I mean, stress is the only way I live right now, I guess, right? But so I also read, and tell me what you think of this, and I can't cite where I read it, but I remember them saying, if you're up in age, and I'm talking, I guess 40 plus, 50 plus, you should also research the company is very valuable, but you should also find something that you're comfortable with, that you're going to like doing. Not like like I don't like stocking shelves. That's where it started.
Key.
Yeah.
It's key. When I coach people, I've been doing coaching for many, many years. I tell them there's two factors you got to look at when you come into how you're going to earn a living. One is your interest, your motivations, and these could be what are your geographic areas of living, how many hours do you want to work, do you want to be a business owner, do you want to be a manager, a supervisor, a rank and file professional? What do you want to be? You have to get to that point, okay? So you understand where you fit in. But it is critical along the lines of what you're talking about that you find a company not only that is a good employer, but whose culture you fit in with, okay? If you happen to be creative, okay, and you go work for a company that's micromanaging,
Yeah.
you'll be asphyxiated.
Right.
You can't function. The reverse of that is that you're somebody who needs to be instructed. You need to know when the lunch break is, and you need to know everything, and you need to be told specifically. Then don't go work for a company that's very creative, because then it's sink or swim. You're on your own.
Yeah.
So these are just two examples of fitting the culture of the company.
And that's important because, what's that saying? Culture eats strategy
For
breakfast
Yeah.
or lunch, whatever it is, every
Famous
single
consultant said.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So I guess if and I'll put myself up there, 55 plus, and if I'm looking for a next opportunity, make sure I find a good employer, make sure I find a good culture that fits in,
Mhm.
and what would be the third most important thing that I guess we have to think about here?
Well, you have to, when you research a company, one of the things that you need to find out is, um, what is, in terms of their culture, what is the thing that makes them successful? Are they very good being inventive with new products? Are they very good uh, in terms of meeting the demands of their market? And when you think along those lines, you have to be able to fit what they need. It's about what they need. You want to think it's about your job, your profession, and your career, but that has to fit what they need. Otherwise, you can't fix it if they don't want it fixed. And I learned that lesson very early on in my career. Okay, I was working with companies, and I realized that the upper echelon, the executives, the owners, just wanted to take it to a certain level. So if I found something that needed to get fixed and I knew how to fix it, I was wasting my time because they weren't going to listen. I had to relearn that lesson later on again. When I became a consultant, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You've heard that expression. And supposing you're a consultant and now you've been a consultant in various industries, okay? And you've solved the same problem over and over again. And you come into this company and they got a major problem. They got 50% turnover. They've got a terrible reputation in the market. You know how to solve it. You're wasting your time if you don't want to solve it.
Yeah, you have to share, in my opinion, the company's vision. If you're a highly technical person and you feel that the future is in technologies like AI or social media, et cetera, and you go to work for a company who doesn't share that vision, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be miserable.
You mentioned AI, and it's a hot topic right now. As with all technological advances, you would think that when Ford applied the assembly line operation to building cars, a lot of people were going to lose their jobs building cars. No, they just adapted to the new technology.
Right.
And the same thing is going to happen with AI. You may not be uh, putting the front windshield of a car if you're in a car manufacturing company, but you're running the program and making sure AI works well. Okay. So you shift into that sort of scenario.
Yeah, and I think AI and Paul says it often, there's an evolution happening and we're evolving in everything that we do, and AI is part of that. Just like the internet's changed the way we handle things, and we've seen a lot of stuff, but we still have to re-educate ourselves. And when I say we, I mean the 50 plus, well, the entire population, yes, but why do the 20 somethings have to be so be in the front of this? Why can't the 50 somethings be in front of this? I mean, we have the experience, we have the knowledge. Let's learn the tool as well, and then we could be as dangerous, I think, as a 20-year-old, couldn't we?
Well, you're saying it right. In the old days, the model was you went to school, you got a job, you stayed with the company for 30 years, and then you resigned. Now it's constant learning. It's school back, coaching, or should I say training, development, backwards and forwards, because the technology and the new things that come into the workplace have sped up. So you have to keep up to stay with it. I have a lot of things I could tell you about AI. I have friends who are leaders in this field, and they would be great people to access. But and there's articles that you can seek on YouTube, et cetera, that are phenomenal about not only the technical aspects of AI, but the long-term effects on civilization.
Yeah.
And you have to adapt to them to a certain degree, know what to use and what not to use. AI is great in technical jobs, but AI is missing a couple of things. Doesn't have empathy.
No empathy.
Empathy has no empathy. You might well teach it, but we're not talking about data and Star Trek at this point, okay? We're not there yet.
Well, I worked for a CEO too that hasn't had empathy either, so I guess.
Well, let's get back to our graduate student, though. This particular person who's maybe a quarter into their career, 30% into their career, even 50% into their career, how do they do that networking? Well, they're not going to go to a Cámara de Comercio. They're not going to go to that type of Chamber of Commerce event. They're going to, that's not going to meet their needs.
Well, there's two or three things I would say. Many professions, like I'm the human resource professional. Nationally, you have the Society for Human Resource Management. You become a member. Then you have HR Miami. Then you have Broward ABC. Okay. These are all organizations that they meet with some regularity. You go there, you have a meeting, there's 50, 60 people there. So you begin to get relationships in those areas, and you begin to talk to those people. And if there's companies that have a reputation or are well known in the field, you might try calling and trying to getting an appointment with one of the senior executives or managers and ask people there, what's it like to work there? So these are two things. I mentioned earlier on that you have to have a pretty good idea of what your interests and motivations are: financial, stability, location, the profession itself, the development of the professional. The second side of that one, before you talk about earning a living, the second side of it is, what are you good at? You need to understand what you're good at. Maybe you're good with numbers. Maybe you're good with people. Maybe you're good with this or with that, geometry, whatever. You have to understand what you're good at. So you take what your interests are and what you're good at, and how do you take that to earning a job? I don't say getting a job, or should I say earning a living is what I meant. You want to take that to a place that is going to compensate you, and yet, the fact of the matter is compensation is not the only thing. You have to be able to fit. Now, not only do you have to be able to fit with a company, you have to be able to fit with the culture of the country.
Right.
Okay? And that's another point I make. And when I teach one of my classes that has to do with the impact of the American culture on how business is done in the USA, one of the first things I say in class the first day is, I'm going to tell you two words that'll tell you why you need to be here. Bud Light.
That's it. Bud Light, right?
If you understand what I'm talking about, that major mistake. And now the latest thing in the recent months has been Cracker Barrel logo.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
These are incredibly successful companies, and somebody wants to make a mark for themselves and decides they want to change. I think the Bud Light senior VP of marketing got fired.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to take those two things into how you earn a living. Okay. Now, what you're good at, what you want to do. Okay. What are your options? Normally speaking, maybe you've already had some exposures in your internships in your previous companies. So your options are going to work in the same industry, in the same profession in a different company. A second option would be going to work in the same industry in a different position. The third option would be doing your own profession in a different industry. Okay. The fourth option is do something entirely different, which could include basically starting your own business. You have at some point you have to make up your mind. Once again, I mentioned this before. Do you want to own your own business? You want to work for somebody, and you want to manage, or you just want to be a highly skilled professional? That's a decision you have to make, and it may be you make the decision down the road. You come to the conclusion that you want to change.
Yeah, and I think it is a very personal decision, and there is something that's happening now also with the Gen X's, and you just Google Gen X, layoffs or whatever it is, and a bunch of stuff comes up. And I think the general consensus from what I'm seeing on the blogs and so forth is that Gen X's now are probably, I don't know the exact term, but it's almost like quiet right-sizing themselves. Maybe I don't need to be a VP anymore. Okay, I've been there, I've done that. I live with the stress. That's the only thing that kept me together. Maybe I do want to be just a district manager or something like that.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's lower responsibility. Of course, that could be lower salary. But does that mean, I get to keep the hair that I have on my head still?
Right. And another angle to that is what is known as a portfolio career.
Yeah.
Portfolio is a French word that means a valise with several compartments. And in the financial world, it means how do you arrange your financials, your assets. In the human resource employment relationship, it means that you don't derive all your income from one source. And what that reduces the stress is if you have a problem with this company or this corporation, maybe you start getting more from over here. You do this as opposed to that. So if you have 2 or 3 things that you're doing, it balances it out and it reduces your stress.
Warren Buffett is a big proponent of multiple sources of income.
Well, the big thing now is the fractional CMO, the fractional this, the fractional that. So maybe that's a good concept that's taken root in some of the things now too.
And you're talking about generations, and generations, there are some differences among the generations, but it's important that people in management understand that they've got to create an environment where the employee feels engaged. If the employee doesn't feel engaged, when I keep talking about a good employer, you don't feel like you're contributing. You don't feel like you're worth anything.
Right.
So you gotta develop some sort of a program to engage people. The class I created about 6-7 years ago, which is the impact of the American culture on business. We cover just about anything that has to do with culture as it relates to business, whether that's the melting pot of immigrants, the creation of the country, the media, education, whatever you want to call it. We cover it, and we tie in the cultural aspect to the business aspect. I was surprised years ago to find out that you put a project on the table in a discussion, and somebody says that's a slam dunk, which is a term that comes from basketball. I'm teaching a class of 50 students, and half the students didn't know what I just said.
Slam dunk?
Slam dunk. So that's when I said, wait a minute. We've got to provide some foundation here. Okay.
So Juan, as we approach the end of our session, I'm sure there's going to be professionals out there who see this podcast who could benefit by your experience and your wise counsel. Can they reach out to you?
Yes, I would suggest you could either text me or you can call me. But if you call me, given the concerns with all the phone calls that people get, I would suggest that you leave a voicemail or you send me a text with your contact information. My number is 786-877-8799. Once again, Juan Pujol, 786-877-8799.
And your email?
My email is facilitators, plural facilitators, TORS, jp@bellsouth.net.
Great. So we picked up three things. You have to research the company, right? You have to do what you enjoy to do, and you have to make sure that the culture fits what
allows you to do it.
allows you to do it. That's really important advice. So I'll definitely catch up on you on a few things there too, because we all need good coaching out there. So I really appreciate your time.
I really enjoy coaching and helping people.
Well, thank you for being here. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you out there. I'm Professor Ken.
And I'm Professor Paul Marino.
And thanks for joining the Forward Motion Business Show.
See you in the next episode.